Tariffs and trade policies likely are going to drive up prices across many of the items that we're going to discuss today. In July of 2025, we're looking at about a July 9th, timeline on this. So we have, just over a week. Though the magnitude will vary depending on each product's reliance on imports and supply chain dynamics. Hello, everybody. If you're new here, welcome to SuttonsDaze. My name is Lisa. We are all about pantry preparedness, and this is something that we have to keep our ears to the ground on. We have to pay attention to because this could impact us negatively depending on the size of your household, the kind of things that you eat, that stuff. So I highly recommend right now pausing, grabbing a pen and paper, because some of this stuff is just going to be, just to put a little context into the timing, and the policy, tariffs took effect in February through June 2025, and price impacts typically show up 2 to 3 months later. That's what they average out, meaning that the July data should reflect them, according to farm.daily.illinois.edu. So major tariffs will stand. The July 9th deadline may extend or escalate depending on negotiations, whether or not the kids can play nicely in the sandbox together. So the overall impact, what the numbers are saying, and I'm going to be cheating here a lot because there's a lot of numbers to toss your way, and I am not a numbers person. But a report from Yale's Budget Lab estimates that all food costs could increase 2.6% in the short term and remain 3% higher permanently due to new tariffs on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada. This finding aligns with the USDA predicting 2.2% food at home inflation overall in 2025. I don't know about you, but I'm seeing a lot more than 2.2%. What are you seeing? The Budget Lab also warns that this surge could add up to $4,900 per household annually, though cost savings behavior may cut that to around $2,600. So what that means is we won't be able to afford the $4,900, and so as a result, the cost savings, meaning we're not spending it, we're not buying it, brings it down to $2,600. Somehow you still have to put a roof over your head, right? So what are these items? So we're going to talk about these items that could be affected by the July, thank you, I almost said January, by the July 2025 tariffs. So number one is tuna and salmon, canned or pouched. Either one. So many brands import fish or packaging materials from Asia. Tariffs on metal cans and imported seafood could increase costs about 70 to 80%. Hang with me here for a minute. 70 to 80% of canned tuna is in the U.S. is imported from Asia. 70 to 80%. Particularly from Thailand, the Philippines, and Indonesia, and Vietnam, which dominate global processing and export. In the early 1990s, Thailand alone supplied 70% of the U.S. canned tuna. 70%. Roughly, what it averages out to is 7 to 8 out of every 10 cans of tuna that you see on U.S. shelves are likely tied by catch or processing to Asian sources. 7 to 8 cans of the 10 on every shelf are coming from someplace else. Okay. Now, the one that kind of surprised me with beans and lentils, because I thought we made quite a bit of those, but lentils and some beans are imported from Canada, Mexico, and South America. And those will be impacted by tariff shifts, right? So beans, Canada contributes meaningfully to the U.S. dry bean supply, while Mexico and Guatemala are the primary sources for fresh beans, which is what goes into the canned. Lentils, although imported volumes from Canada are relatively small, they significantly influence the US market, covering over half of consumption some years. So it kind of ebbs and flows, right? South America plays a secondary role in both bean and lentil imports with modest but noticeable presence. Even our beans are going to go up. The next one breaks my heart, but it doesn't. Wait. So they're saying peanut butter. And I'm thinking of this as kind of like a false flag kind of thing because it's just not. The total amount represents under 1%. Peanut imports to the US, both raw and shelled, make up less than 0.5% of overall consumption. So, yay. I'm thinking that what is going to be the biggest impact is the packaging. And that's where we'll get hit with the tariffs. They'll get hit, we'll get hit. Next is eggs. This is actually not tariff driven. It's driven more by avian flu outbreaks than tariffs. Yeah. It's expected, though. They are still predicting a 33% increase by year end 2025. And it's still cheaper to get them from the store than to get chickens. It's amazing. Canned beef and canned chicken. The big reason for the canned beef and the canned chicken is the rising metal costs, imported beef products, and global supply chain stress. So specialty steel is used in cans, has seen a price bump of around 6%, according to Pacific Coast producers, amid the doubling of tariffs from 25 to 50%. You know, overall tin plate steel, which is what most food cans are made of, is mostly imported. About 75% of it comes from abroad, and industry groups estimate that canned goods could see a 9 to 15% increase at the consumer level due to these tariffs. So it kind of makes another case for home canning. By the time you're all said and done, it's cheaper to buy yourself a pressure canner and some jars and make your own, can your own, do it safely. Do not water bath it. Okay. Now, this one does impact me pretty significantly. Protein powder. Okay. Because the protein powders that have pea protein in them are often sourced from tariff-affected nations like China and India. China is a major exporter, making up 41% of global pea protein shipments, with Germany and the Netherlands filling much of the rest. That's according to a thing on LinkedIn.com, Balza. The U.S. recently imposed anti-dumping and countervailing duties on Chinese pea protein. Are they dumping it? And that's according to the USDA. So Canada, Russia, and others also supply pea protein, but China's share is substantial. Yes, it is. And the estimate is that approximately 40% of pea protein inputs in the U.S. protein powders are likely sourced from China, with negligible amounts from anyplace else. The bottom line on that is that if you are buying or stocking protein powder brands with pea protein, you're going to see some pretty big price jumps next. They're going to be the ones that pop up pretty quick due to China's large share and new tariff burdens. So if you are a protein powder person like I am, stock up. And that's easier said than done. That stuff's expensive. Mixed nuts. Mixed nuts. And it's not just any old mixed nuts, right? It's the imported ones. The cashews, the pistachios, the Brazil nuts, can face tariff hikes. The U.S. imports a significant share of its nuts, particularly cashews, macadamias, pecans, and almonds, from countries like Brazil, Vietnam, Australia, and Africa, according to Wikipedia. According to Eating Well, tariffs of 10% or higher are expected on imports of cashews, macadamias, and other tropical nuts, especially from Vietnam, Brazil, and Australia. Cashews from Vietnam could see tariffs up to 46%. Those are like my favorite nut in the whole world, probably because they're the carbiest nut, but 46% if temporary exemptions are lifted around July 8th, according to Eating Well. Macadamias, often imported from Australia, face roughly 10% tariffs. Almonds, pecans, and other nuts from Canada, Mexico, and Australia are also exposed to 10 to 25% tariffs. Overall, because there's always those people that are like, well, we need to buy US egg. I get it, okay, but you can't. That's just, we don't produce enough for the consumption level in the country. And that's with anything I'm talking about, okay? Most imported nuts, especially the tropical varieties, are subject to new tariffs ranging from 10 to 50%, depending on the country and the type. Now, the next one, we've been talking about this literally for a couple of years, and that's white rice. White rice, okay? The reason that this is going to go up, because we have been talking about it for a couple of years. Price is going to go up, price is going to go up, and it really hasn't gone up much, So the reason they're saying is because India has export bans now. They're not exporting it. And then you add tariffs from any place else, and you have global rice inflation. All these new terms I never thought I'd put together. 2022 and 3 saw U.S. rice imports at just over 25% of domestic rice use, continuously rising. In the same year that they did that, right? The same crop year, imports climbed further to about 32%, marking a record high. We eat a lot of rice, but we don't make a lot of rice. The big thing that is driving it, which I think is important to pay attention to, is the aromatic varieties like basmati or jasmine rice, not commonly grown in the U.S., make up more than 60% of imports. Now, I know you guys have said it. I said it. Those are the two kinds that I buy, okay? And I know a lot of you buy the same ones. So they make up 60% of the imports. And that's according to OEC World. Yeah, USDA.gov. South America exports like Brazil and Uruguay contribute modestly to long grain rice imports, but roughly, just for the math, just to wrap your brain around it, right? Roughly 1 in 3 cups of rice eaten in the US is imported. 1 in 3 cups of rice is imported. Here's the cool part. It literally lasts 30 years, white rice, 30 years, okay? So if you buy it now and put it in Mylar and put it in buckets, you've got rice for a very long time, and it's one less thing you have to worry about. The U.S. relies heavily on imports for aromatic rice, which domestic production does not supply. That means we don't make it in the U.S., with most non-aromatic rice still being produced stateside. So if you want the non-aromatic rice, which I don't want the long grain. I want jasmine. You can want all you want. Number 10 is oats. And that doesn't matter. That's quick oats or rolled oat, quick, rolled, or steel cut. Yeah. Tariffs on packaging and oats from Canada. That's the main reason. 2024 data shows about 1.2 million tons of oats imported into the U.S. 1.2 million tons of oats imported into the U.S. compared to approximately 833,000 tons domestically produced. So we don't even produce half of the oats that are eaten in this country. 60% are imports. Canada accounts for roughly 98% of all U.S. oat imports. Since most oats are imported, they are highly sensitive to tariffs, trade disruptions, and supply chain issues. Yeah. Oh, flour. Now, this one blew my mind, right? Because I'm like, flour, seriously? U.S. flour prices may raise slightly due to energy and transport costs and packaging tariffs. Not the flour itself. It's all the other stuff that gets it to where it's got to go. Quinoa. This one, if you are a quinoa eater, take this seriously, my friends, okay? Imported from South America. It is very tariff sensitive. Very tariff sensitive. About 45% of global quinoa production is imported by the US. A significant reliance on South America's output, primarily from Peru, 58%, and Bolivia, 35%, with other sources filling in the rest, right? So to translate that into US consumption, because God, we're good at that. In 2023, the US imported about 28.6 thousand metric tons of quinoa. Do you know how much? I mean, that stuff doesn't weigh nothing. Do you know how much that's got to be? US domestic production remains relatively small because it's experimental and regional. So those imports make up a very high share of quinoa available in the US market, as much as or more than 90% of the quinoa consumed here. Bread. To me, I'm like, bread again? Yeah, it's the packaging. Packaged bread may rise with wheat price shifts, okay, and labor and tariff related packing costs. Crackers, same deal. It's kind of like bread, made with flour, oils, and packaging, all affected by tariffs and price surges. Cereal, which is overrated anyway, in my opinion, okay. Processed foods face packaging, grain, and shipping tariffs. That's going to be, I mean, literally everybody's being hit by this because of the packaging. So even if it's manufactured food like cereal here in the US, you still have to put it into a box, and most of those boxes are made in China, or, you know, the bags that they're in. Now, this one is going to hurt a little bit. Canned vegetables. Uh, your canned vegetables and your canned fruit, actually, because, well, they're both canned, okay? So metal can tariffs plus high fuel costs plus potential import exposure. And that goes for either one. Many of the fruits that we have canned are imported or processed aboard and repackaged in the US. Quite a bit of our vegetables are too. So those are going to get hit also. Now, the one that kind of surprised me was the tomato sauce or tomato paste. Yeah. Tomato concentrate and metal cans are often imported. They call it tomato concentrate. According to Volza trade data covering November of 23 to October of 24, Italy, Turkey, and Chile together account for approximately 58% of U.S. tomato paste concentrate imports. And that's according to tomatonews.com. These three countries alone supply nearly 28,000 to 30,000 shipments, with Italy accounting for 29%, Turkey 19%, and Chile 10% of total import volume. Next is cooking oils, vegetable, canola, olive, and coconut oils. Many oils are imported. Okay, your coconut and olive oils are especially affected. Again, you know, droughts, diseases, tariffs, you got it. Vinegar, this one kind of took me by surprise because when I think vinegar, I automatically go to white vinegar, you know. But vinegar, ingredients like alcohol and packaging may be tariff affected. So definitely packaging. And I'm thinking with alcohol, they're talking about the specialty vinegars. Sugar from Brazil and Mexico and packaging tariffs could raise costs due to that. Spices and herbs. Most spices are imported. India, China, etc. Spices are among the hardest hit categories because, I mean, we've been trading spices or importing spices here literally for hundreds of years, right? Yeah, spices and herbs. Honey. Oh, humans are so great. The US imports 70% of its honey. 70% of its honey is imported. Tariffs are part of it, and fraud crackdowns may also increase the cost because there are literally black markets out there selling fraudulent honey. Coffee and tea. You know I'm watching this one, right? And any of my fellow coffee drinkers know, yeah, the price has gone up and it's going to keep going up. So coffee from Brazil, Vietnam, Ethiopia, and tea from China and India face rising costs due to drought and tariffs. Sports drinks, ingredients like imported electrolytes and flavors and the packaging and sweetener tariffs. Yeah, That's what's hitting us. So canned coconut milk, almost entirely imported, almost entirely from Thailand, Sri Lanka, and the Philippines. Very tariff sensitive. Broths and stocks. Broths and stocks. Yay, home canners. Okay. This is largely packaging, imported flavor bases, and energy intensive production because you and me, home canners, we know what it takes to cook that down. We know what it takes to make the best, right? So it is very energy intensive when you're looking at all of the stock and broth that they produce. Now, your baking essentials like your yeast, your baking soda, your baking powder, etc., right? Some of those have imported ingredients and rising energy and packaging costs. So it's not just the food itself, it's also what it's in. And because it is cheaper for it to be someplace else. The next one is chocolate. And we all know about this one, okay? Cocoa prices are at 40-year highs. They have gone up that big. Imports from West Africa plus sugar tariffs add to the inflation. It's, even the chocolate, yes. In short, okay, many of these foods are either imported or use imported ingredients or packaging. And the packaging, I think, is a large player in this, making them vulnerable to July 2025's tariff environment. Combined with ongoing global supply chain strain and climate issues, these staples are possibly going to see a notable price hike, making right now a smart time to stock up or find domestic frugal alternatives. One, if you can, stock up, okay? Then look for domestic alternatives. We cannot, do not, will not produce what we consume in this country. We can't do it without outside sources, okay? So some things may just cease to be available. Some things may go up exponentially in price, and some things you just may not eat anymore as a result, okay? But sometimes you can find alternatives. Sometimes you can, not all the time. I know it's a long list. I mean, it was painful going through all this. It was really painful going through all this, but I hope it's helpful. And the good news is that it's not about panic or fear. We have to remember that. It is not about panic or fear, okay? It's about being smart and stocking your pantry in a way that's smart for you and your family. If you know your family uses these items, consider buying ahead before July 9th, okay? You can skip the price hikes for a little while and stretch your food budget. It will never be as cheap as it was yesterday, and tomorrow it will not be as cheap as it is today. So what you're doing is you're just giving yourself more time before you have to start paying those elevated prices. Best advice is don't panic. Don't do this based on fear. Do this based on preparedness and being aware that these are the potential things coming, down the pike, and prepare for them as best as you can, because you've got this, my friends. You can do it. We can weather this storm together and hopefully come out on the other end better for it. What is one item from this list that is going to impact you the hardest? Let me know in the comments section down below. Until next time, everybody, be safe. Stack it to the rafters, my friends.